Hello, friends. It's Chris Angel coming at you for another episode of Marketing for the Rest of Us. Today, we're talking about networking versus marketing. Now, this specifically came from somebody I met at a networking event who I got talking to in a follow-up email. Had thanked him for his interest. He had mentioned introducing me to some other people. And then I sent him a link in that email as well to my podcast, to this podcast. And he responded and commented back, have you ever done an episode on networking versus marketing? Because he had listened to an episode that was about advertising versus marketing. So I thought I'd do a follow-up, right, like as a response to the question. Or, right, the question, have you done an episode on networking versus marketing? Okay, so here's my first thing I want to say to you about that, which is I love it when you guys ask me questions. So if you have a question, throw it in the comments, right? Like if you have a question about marketing, or if you have an idea for a topic, something you want me to address about marketing, then throw that in the comments because I would love to talk about that. Okay, so now on to the conversation here about networking versus marketing. So here's where I'll start. I'm a people person. I'm a people-oriented person. So networking is a good fit for me because I like being around people and I get energy from people. I am an extrovert, not an introvert, although I have become more introverted or ambiverted, if you will, in the last 10 years of my life. But you know, when I was in high school, college, I would jump off walls, and now as a 43-year-old person, I like my quiet time. And but I noticed that I do get energy from people. So in that regard, I am an extrovert. Okay. So that being said, networking was always a good fit for me. The breakdown for me in networking was that most networking, I found myself being the listener. Like I'm the one that always asks questions, and most people are not good at asking me questions. So I would come, as much as I was energized by people, I would come home exhausted because I had just listened to so many people talk about themselves at networking and never ask me anything. Right? So selfishly, I came back feeling like I wasn't seen. I saw lots of people, like I saw them, I got them, I understood them, but nobody got me. Nobody was interested in me. And so from that perspective about networking, I didn't enjoy that. Also about networking, in some ways I always felt like it was like a meat market, right? Like people are always showing up to networking events to try to get something. Which kind of goes hand in hand with the first thing I said, right? Where nobody really listened to me and I did a lot of listening. I would go to networking events and it would be, let's say it was a 2-hour event, and it would take me forever to get anywhere with a conversation. So it felt like it was a really long and slow road to discovering needs, right? Like I could discover somebody else's needs, but nobody really ever dove into my stuff. So it was kind of like, it was 2 hours of my time wasted, it felt like. And what? Like I would meet, let's say I met at a 2-hour event, let's say I could really effectively get around to maybe 10 conversations. Unless I'm just really working a room and I'm passing a card and I'm like, okay, it's some type of speed dating networking, which isn't interesting to me because I want to have really meaningful conversations. And which, by the way, is another thing about networking, is it's hard to start to get into the real meaningful conversations and get enough repetitions in a room. So I might actually, instead of 5 conversations in 2 hours or 10 conversations, I might get into 2 or 3 really meaningful conversations in 2 or 3 hours, only to find out that at the end of that meaningful conversation, the person wasn't really a good fit for me. Like they're not my tribe, right? Like they're at the event, but if I dig deeper, they're either not interested in what kind of services I have, or they can't afford what services I have, or they're just not people I want to help, right? They're not people I actually want to work with. So, so 2 hours to have 3 to 5 meaningful conversations only to find out that they're not my people. That's a really inefficient way to work, right? It's a really inefficient way to find your people. So it doesn't mean that I dislike networking. I actually have a networking group that I go to every Wednesday. I started this group 2 years ago because I found myself, as much as I was doing marketing online, I found myself feeling alone. And locally, I wanted community. I wanted people around me. So I now today participate in networking, not because I'm trying to use it as a lead source. I'm networking now because I want relationship with people. I want to have an exchange of ideas with people I trust, with people I've spent months and months having conversations with. So, I think I can complete my thoughts on networking with that, right? Which is I use networking now to establish relationships and go deeper with people I want to go deeper with, and I invite them into my networking group. But I don't care for networking so much as like a lead generator for me, right? It's a fun thing for me. Let me get out and just see something new, try something new. And when I go to a networking event, I don't go with a whole bunch of anticipation of like, oh my God, I sure hope that I get a bunch of leads out of this tonight. I prefer, so let's switch now to marketing. I prefer to be able to put my message in front of the right people, which marketing allows us to do, right? Partially because when you are marketing and you have a conversation that you want to lead in the world, which is your marketing message, that message will attract the right people. So the people who come back for more of your content are people who actually are interested in what you have to say. Already that's different than networking, right? Because in networking, people don't ask you anything. They don't really listen to you say anything. You're sitting there asking them questions and listening to them. But if you put out content and people come back for more of your content, in essence, they're listening to you ongoingly. Why? Because they value your perspective about something. In networking, I didn't feel like anybody valued anything I said. But in marketing, I feel like the people who come back for more do value it. And as a result, I feel like the things I share are valuable to those who come back, right? So that makes me feel good about what I'm sharing, because then I love finding people who it's helping. Also, as you start to market your message, if you start to take it to an intermediate to advanced level, you can start to put that message in front of the right people through things like Facebook ads, right? You can create podcasts. You can have guests on your podcast, which, by the way, is some type of a hybrid of marketing and networking, because you can invite guests that you really want to network with to be guests on your show and market to the people listening while you're doing it. Okay, so I love that. So for me, and let's go towards efficiency for a minute, because I brought up efficiency with networking. It's not very efficient in networking, but marketing, I can do like, this is a daily show, and this is a lot of work to do a daily show in the scope of, like, this is a lot of content. Let's say it that way. It's not hard for me to do these shows, but it's a lot of content. But I can do one 10 to 20 minute show, and it can live in perpetuity on the internet. Right? And in fact, how I came up with this topic today was I emailed a link to this show, an episode on the show, to the person I met at the networking event. So it gave me marketing, this kind of marketing gave me an appropriate way to follow up and to continue to build relationship with the person I met at the networking event in such a way that they could get to know me more and how I think about things. I just was on a site today looking at some different types of consultants, and I sent the consultant, who I'll talk to on Saturday, but I sent the consultant a couple links to my podcast so they can get to know me through the show as well. So now I can use marketing not just to attract my tribe, but I can use it to nurture relationships. I can use it to prime the pump on relationships of people I'm considering working with, who also consider working with me, and we can have so now on Saturday when I meet with this person, if they've listened to any of my stuff, like we'll have a lot of relationship primed because I have this content, right? So as you can tell, I have a particular way that I lean, right? Like I lean towards marketing because it's efficient. I get to say what I want to say to the world on my terms. There's nobody here interacting with me, right? Like I don't have to wait for somebody else to say something. I can say to you what I want to say to you in the amount of time I spend in this video uninterrupted. So it's very efficient, it's very specific, it's very intentional, and I can repurpose it. It's very hard to repurpose your networking. Most of the time in networking, I come home with a stack of cards, and then they go in a drawer. And even if I did muster the energy to write a handwritten note or do some type of follow-up that way, most of the time it's a wasted energy because it doesn't turn into anything. But this marketing, I can repurpose. I can use it as a podcast. I can put it on my YouTube channel. I can put it on my Facebook page. I can have it transcribed. I can have somebody write a blog post about it. I can create clips of it and run them as Facebook ads. Like, look, there's so many things I can do with this. And over time, it builds this huge digital footprint for me, right? So when it comes to other people starting to find me, if you extrapolate this out 3 years, 5 years, and you look at the digital footprint I'm creating, this gives me a ton of residual value that networking just doesn't give you. Networking evaporates. The minute you leave, unless you establish a relationship or you follow up, and then you keep following up, there's no residual value to the networking event. There is, however, residual value to this type of content marketing. So there you have it, gang. Like that's my take on networking versus marketing. Like I said, I like networking for the sake of establishing relationships with people that I care about, that I like, that I want to get to know deeper in a very intentional way, right? And if I go to a networking event that isn't like a regular thing for me, then I'll do it because I want to do it because it sounds fun and not because I'm going with a handout or expecting to generate a ton of business, right? And then I don't have to put pressure on the conversations I have at networking events. I don't have to put pressure on, well, is anybody going to ask me questions? Because I don't need to go for that. I can actually just go and ask people questions because I'm a good question asker, I'm a good listener, and I can be there for that reason and have people feel known and gotten and not leave feeling like, well, that was a waste of my time. I can actually feel good about the questions I asked and the listening that I did because that's what I was there for. So there you have it, gang. If you are interested in this type of marketing, right, where you can be intentional and efficient and repurpose the heck out of it, I have a course that kicks all of it off at groundswellmethod.com. It's 90 minutes, 5 videos, 90 minutes, and it walks you through how do you start to do this type of content marketing that feels proactive and on purpose. Okay, go to groundswellmethod.com, and until tomorrow when I go live again, have a great night.